So, you're thinking about becoming a digital nomad in 2023. Good luck! These are 10 things I've learned after being a digital nomad and full-time traveller for the last 6 years. Let's get going. So hi everyone, if you're new, I'm David. I'm originally from the UK and I'm currently in Sofia, Bulgaria. It's the middle of December right now. It's freezing cold. We're heading towards Christmas and the new year, and this is actually my penultimate video. The next one is my final one, obviously, and it's a regular travel style video, kind of. Before I move on to the next stage of my digital nomad journey, I don't know why I'm looking over there. So I thought this would be the ideal time to do this kind of video, to talk about some of my learnings, maybe some advice, some tips, that sort of thing, if you are considering going down the same path in life. Right, enough bullshit. Let's go. Point number 1 is digital nomad debunk. What does this mean? We've all seen those videos, those images over the years on social media of the obligatory sexy girl with the big tits on a beach, on her laptop with no Wi-Fi, no power source, the glare on the screen, sand and water everywhere. Come on, it's not realistic. I have never met a digital nomad that lives that kind of lifestyle. I'm sure there are many out there. Obviously, it depends very much on what you do and whether you have the capability of doing that. Understand that in many cases, especially if you are completely entrepreneurial and you're starting everything from scratch, it's just like setting up a small business. You're going to be in a small room in the dark, smoking like 3 packets of cigarettes a day, drinking 4 bottles of wine every night. You know, what I'm saying is be realistic about what it's going to be like. You know, forget this perpetuation of the myth online about the wondrous life of a digital nomad, because yes, sometimes it can be great, but also it can be awful. I almost swore then. Another myth to debunk around digital nomad life is digital nomad visas. If I compare now with 6 years ago, there are now many more countries which offer digital nomad visas. And I feel like if you look online, there are many people talking about digital nomad visas in that you need to have one. You don't. Obviously, if you are planning to spend a lot of time in one country, then yeah, it might be an option for you. In general, if you are like me and, you know, you get bored of a country after 6 weeks, you want to move, you know, and you can just go on a tourist visa and work online, especially if you're working for yourself. You know, you don't necessarily need to go through that whole rigmarole of applying for a digital nomad visa, looking at the requirements, eligibility, things like that, because many of them you do need to have a very high salary in order to qualify for it. At some point in the future, you might get to a point where like, yeah, I want to stay in this country for a year. Let's do it. Great. But it's not completely necessary. Point number 2 is about the Holy Grail. There are 3 ways in my mind of being a digital nomad. Number 1, you could go to another country and be employed by a company from that country, and then maybe at the weekend fly around to other areas or other countries. You know, if you're in Bangkok, for example, you can get a little flight with AirAsia to Vietnam, Cambodia at the weekend, whatever, and work during the week. Number 2 is working for your company that you're already working for, assuming they are flexible and allow remote working. And this can be great because especially if you're from the US or UK, Australia or whatever, and you're earning in the currencies from those countries and living in a more affordable country, which is an ethical thing I will touch on later around impact throughout this video actually, you know, that can be a great thing because you can be earning a certain amount of money and your cost of living is incredibly low. So it's a good opportunity to make money. Number 3 is what I've been doing from day one, completely entrepreneur. I teach English online and I have a YouTube channel and various other little incomes here and there that appear out of nowhere. And doing that is, I would say, the hardest option, because as I said at the beginning, you will be in a little room setting everything up, becoming established. It takes a lot of time, a lot of hard work. Do not underestimate how much work it takes to set something up from scratch, from zero. So whatever your situation is, each of them are valid. You know, a lot of people do kind of say that, oh, but if you're not an entrepreneur completely, then you're not a digital nomad. Who cares? Point number 3, it's not a holiday, or should I say vacation if you're from the US. Get out of your mind straight away that you're going to be on holiday. As with the whole myth, point number 1 thing, you know, you might think that you're going to be going to this tropical destination and you'll be spending most of your time on a beach or, you know, going on expensive day trips and excursions. You're not on a holiday. Get that mindset out of your head from day one. And the sooner you do that, the more successful you will be and the faster and more efficiently you'll be able to establish yourself. You've got to kind of disregard what maybe family and friends will be thinking. You know, we've all seen those memes like what my parents think I do, what my friends think I do, what I actually do. And that's accurate. You know, you're not going to be doing things which are relating to tourism unless you have sufficient savings saved up at the beginning to allow you to do that. If you are starting from scratch with nothing, you're going to be skint. You're going to be staying in hostels. You're going to be staying in very cheap places in order to survive. Point number 4 is cost revenue ratio. You've got to have the mindset from day one that it's all about profit. What is your income each month? What are your expenses? Are you spending too much? Are you living beyond your means? Do you need to reduce your spend in order to make a profit each month? And particularly in the early days, before you've established anything, this is crucial. One of the things you can do in this case is to start off in lower cost of living countries. It's not rocket science, and I'm particularly talking about this in terms of maybe a typical white Westerner from the US earning in US dollars, all right? So just to clarify that, because it's not the same case for everyone. If you're earning in US dollars, living in Cambodia, you have a fantastic opportunity to make some money, simply. Something people often don't realise is around your expenses. You will have fewer expenses compared to living back in your home country. You won't have a car payment, you won't have petrol, car insurance, electricity bills, water, all of that. Because if you do stay in an Airbnb, for example, all of that is included. So that's a great thing that you do have far less in terms of your expenses, so you can really minimise your expenses and focus on your income. A bit of an example or comparison with this is that, this year, of course, as COVID regulations kind of disappeared, we saw a lot of Americans going to various European countries and doing maybe a big trip of 7 countries in 2 weeks. But of course, they generally would go to Germany, France, Spain, Italy, the UK, more expensive Western European countries, because obviously they're on a vacation and they probably saved for that, they budgeted for that, and they want to do the things which are particularly more touristy. But when you're a digital nomad, it's not like that. You can't afford to live in Paris. You can't afford to spend 3 months in Rome because you'd be broke. So you do end up spending a lot of time in Eastern European countries, such as Serbia in my case, or in Southeast Asia, which is kind of where I started, or Latin America, Mexico. So be prepared to be flexible and inventive around where you're staying, basically, and do whatever you can to minimise your expenses. Be frugal. Be a Scrooge. Point number 5 is the chicken or the egg. What? What this is about is whether you should develop multiple income streams or focus on one. Now, in the beginning, I watched a lot of videos around the fact that yes, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You see the chicken thing? And that's absolutely what I did. From the beginning, I started to explore various options in terms of teaching English to begin with. I was looking at different platforms. I think I used 2 in the beginning. And also with YouTube, I've written ebooks over the years. So I've had different income streams over the years. And absolutely, I would agree that in the beginning, particularly if you are going down the entrepreneurial solo route, that is the right thing to do. It's about spreading the risk, because if you only focus on one thing and, something happens and that falls apart, you're screwed. If you are focusing on multiple income streams, you do have something to fall back on. However, there is something which I feel has developed for me in that over the years, I wish I had started focusing on one, because as time passes, you kind of realise which one is your primary income and which one is kind of a secondary one, and that can change over time. Things change in the world and things develop. But I do feel as though by not focusing on one thing, at least for the last few years, that has been a detriment to me, because I feel like I've not been able to put 100% into everything. It's always been, 50% into YouTube, 50% into teaching English, and that has bothered me in a way. And I feel like going forward into my next part of the digital nomad journey, that's kind of what I'm going to do. I want to focus on one thing rather than 10 million. This is very much connected to point number 6, which is work blocks. I couldn't think of a funny name for that one. What this is about is income versus travel. As I've said before, you might think that as a digital nomad you'll be travelling all the time, but the fact is, travel is expensive. Sometimes you may need to take some time to simply work, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, knuckle down to make some money. It's very difficult to travel and work at the same time, believe it or not, because as with the last point, you can't fully focus on either of them, and then possibly either one of them will suffer. At least this is what I like to do. I might go to Mexico for a few months, film a YouTube series there, then I'll go to another country which is, again, lower cost of living, and work for a few months and make some money again. And then after 3 months, do a travel block again. Don't feel like you have to be travelling all the time, That's not possible. It's tough. It affects your mental health, your physical health, your bank balance, everything. You know, it's okay to say that you don't like travel anymore and you want to take a break from it. You don't have to permanently be interested in travel. There's a great misconception that, you know, oh, travel is so amazing. It's the epitome of everything. You should love it all the time. Right now, I hate it. I do not want to travel anywhere for as long as I live. Point number 7 is state of flux. We're back to the inventive names now. What I mean by this is quite literal. The world is always in a state of flux. Things are always changing. We have to adapt to the situations we're in, right? I'm not living in the same world I was in when I started doing this, and as a result, I've had to change. I've had to change things up, if you like. If we think about the pandemic, the Ukraine war, in my case, I was stuck in Belarus at the beginning of the pandemic, but I didn't see that as a negative. I used that as an opportunity for my advantage. I set up my website. A lot of my students were now available much more because they were working from home. So I used that as an opportunity to make money, basically. I used that as a work block. With the Ukraine war, it was kind of the opposite situation, and I'm hopefully starting to come out the back of that now as people move and are becoming more settled in wherever they've moved to. You know, of course, there are many other things in life which can impact your incomes. Demand for things change. You know, there might be something that you start in year 1, which by year 5 has kind of become obsolete. So you do have to think about how are you going to change things up. You can't necessarily leave everything exactly the same way. It's a little bit like, you know, a social media algorithm. You can't just keep doing the same thing forever because eventually it doesn't work. Think about how adaptable you are and how inventive you can be and innovative in terms of changing up what you do in order to meet the demand of today's world. Point number 8, I can't be bothered to do the fingers anymore. It gets easier. I promise you it does. It may feel at times in the beginning that you want to jump out the window or jump in front of a train. Believe me, I've had my moments over the years. But as a primary income becomes more established, it just starts to tick over, at least in my case. You know, I have been through times in the past where I've been skint, no money, absolutely brassic. That's Cockney rhyming slang. But I've also had times where, you know, everything's going quite well and I don't really have to budget or think so much about what I'm spending. As I said earlier, I don't have any bills. I'm not paying electricity bills, gas bills and so on. So my expenses are minimal, and because I'm living in lower cost of living countries, it means that I can have a relatively comfortable life. I'm not rich by any means, but I can go to Starbucks every day. You know, when I think back to the early days of blood, sweat and tears and absolute exhaustion and working ridiculous hours in order to establish something, I'm incredibly proud of myself. And I think I probably didn't talk about that as much as I should have done at the time. And I don't think people realised the level of work that went into it, to the point now I'm chilling. You know, I'm not saying that will be the same forever because, you know, things change. We have to adapt. Take some time to look back and be proud of yourself for what you've achieved, I guess. You know, plan, do, review. The reviewing part is just as important as the other two parts. Okay, point number 9, we're getting there, I promise, is go against the grain and consider your impact. They kind of go together. So you may have seen online over the years, Chiang Mai, Thailand, Bali, you know, typical digital nomad destinations, which, yes, are incredibly established in terms of that lifestyle. It's great for networking, great for socialising, that sort of thing. But maybe you don't want to socialise, like me. I'm a total introvert. Maybe you don't need to network for whatever job you're doing. You can go somewhere else. You don't need to go to these places which are popular. You know, I've spent a lot of time in northern Mexico, in random cities in the desert, or the back of beyond in the Balkans. You know, it still works. You can work from anywhere. As long as there's good Wi-Fi, you're laughing. You know, in terms of impact, this very much goes with it. And around the word enclave, you do get these enclaves or communities. Is it enclave or exclave or whatever? These communities of digital nomads or foreigners in a place. You know, look at Mexico City. We've got Condesa and Roma. Yes, not only digital nomads, but expats, you know. I do get concerned with what impact I'm having in terms of, am I supporting local businesses? Is me being there a benefit or a hindrance? Is it making life more difficult for people who are from there? Which is very much why when I go to Mexico City, I stay in Iztapalapa. I stay in obscure areas where there are very few or no foreigners. And I support local businesses. I do everything I can to be a local in the community. It's a real divisive topic which I could probably talk about forever, and it's definitely something that has become much more apparent to me over the years around where I choose to stay. Another point around this is language. Learn the bloody language when you're in a country. Of course, if you're moving around a lot, you can't be expected to learn every single language on the planet, every 3 months. It's just not doable, but, at least make an effort to learn the basics. It frustrates me so much when I see English speakers go to Mexico and make absolutely no effort to even learn, or even, I'm sure they know gracias, but they don't even use it. Like, why not? You're not in an English-speaking country. I just can't fathom it. It's an absolute flabbergasting aspect. If you want to come across as someone who is contributing and making an effort, language is a key aspect of that. And number 10, epitome, or it's not the epitome. As with many things in this video, you've got to get out of your mind certain myths, and this is one of them. I get the impression that many digital nomads feel that they're living their best life, that what they're doing is the epitome of life, and that you cannot go any higher than that. And I've got to admit, probably in the early days, I did have an element of that, but as time has passed, God no. No job is better than another. Just because you're choosing to live in a tropical location and working, it doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else. If you're Brittany again, who works in Target in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where did that come from? She's just as valid. What she's doing is just as valid as what you're doing. So get that haughty attitude out of your head, because you sound like a dick. If you think like that, you're an absolute cock. So that's that. Yeah, be humble. Digital nomad life may not last forever. You may want to move on to different things, as I'm doing now. I'm getting a bit irate now, I know. You may have to go back to your home country, to a job you did before, and you may see yourself as a failure. Other people may see yourself as a failure, that, he went off to Thailand and it didn't work. So be it. Things change in life. Our desires, our passions, what we want to do in life change. And just because we decide to be a digital nomad doesn't mean we have to do that forever, and it doesn't mean that we have reached the pinnacle of existence. So thanks for watching. I hope this has at least been partially useful for you. I need to do some English lessons actually in half an hour, but you'll see me again next Friday in a week for my final video. It is an absolute epic from, do you want to know how many countries it's from? 6. Don't ask me how I achieved that, but I have. Well done me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Catch you later even. Goodbye.